Rabbi Kaplan, we're beginning part 3.
And they can't understand that maybe the chazon knows something that they don't know, and maybe he understands something that they don't understand, and maybe there's different ways, different things that outweigh this problem of learning in Ivrit. No. That all comes in the nene ledaber b'ashmasom of Rabbeinu Yonah that brings that it becomes that this talking and this relating to the bed all the time becomes so much part of the person that he feels he could go to the Gadol Hador that was Yoga B'Torah Kol Yomov, and he could go tell him what's right and what's wrong, and how he understands, and how he doesn't understand, and he'll teach him how to paskin. It could come to such an absurd situation, it could come to. The union of being done people a kav schuz also has to do with what we're talking now. It's a very, very hard mitzvah to be done somebody else like kav schuz. To judge him in favor. But it also, and I'm not going to give a whole talk on that Inyan now, maybe a different time, but part of the Inyan is that when you judge the other person in Lechova, so you are connecting yourself to bed. You're having a certain feeling and connection to the bed that you saw, and it could stick to the person. I'm not saying that he nene from it. It doesn't have to mean he enjoys it, but still, there's a certain relationship and shaykhus to the ra that can wear off on the person who's thinking about him, and that's why there's an inyan to be done. It's a mitzvah to be done the other person. We could find many, many examples. The most classical example is what I was saying before, that somebody is trying to ask mechila. In the asking mechila, you could say you could shame the other person. The emes is that's an extreme case. With Lulei Shalmanu, that it just happened a few days ago, we would never believe that it could be such a thing. But sometimes there is that portion what I'm saying, that person is talking frumkeit, and his whole talking frumkeit is because he enjoys talking bad on others. And there's another thing that I remembered now, that it's very common to hear conversations of parents who talk about the girls' schools or even the boys' schools, that they talk about the takonas of how to dress. You have to dress like this, like that, these kind of socks, and even if you do dress tzniustik, but there's such a thing as rechovi, which is also terrible. And parents, you can hear conversations sometimes about how it's why do they do this, and why do they make such rules, and why do why how could it be such a thing? You don't take in somebody because their mother dresses like this, like that, and talking. And it's true, they're right. All these complaints, there are legitimate complaints, but still it comes to a situation where you enjoy talking and not enjoying to talk so much, enjoy complaining. There is such a thing. And I always try to put in, when these conversations come up, I try to put in a word and say, but I understand why they're doing it. They're afraid that there's so much youngsters that are going off the derech, and the street is so tome, such a ruach atum in the street, and even in the Haredi street, that there's a tremendous pachad of how do we stop this? How do we make our places, our schools, and our houses be separated from the street? And sometimes by the chitzonius, how you dress, it could be mashpia on the pneumius. So I understand where they're coming from. So you have to have that also. And when you just complain, so what happens is that you forget where it comes from. And Kilo, we're always right. And but what about going on? What about but there are problems that have to be addressed and that they're trying to address these problems. Anyway, and the end of such a conversation always is, oh, isn't it terrible? And oh, I'm right all the time, and I know what's right, and I know not. What kind of it doesn't bring a feeling of simcha. You don't go out from such a conversation with a feeling of satisfaction, and you don't go out with a feeling of simcha. You just go out with a feeling of, oh, it's so terrible. And I'm not talking about Lashon Hara, and I'm not talking about other Isurim of Dibur. I'm just talking about this one Nakuda of Rabbeinu Yonah. And I'm not talking about what's right and what's wrong. And people are going to hear what I just said. They're going to say, yeah, of course, he's in favor of the schools. He's in favor of all these rules that they had. Like my son was in trouble because he wore white socks. My son in a yeshiva Ketana. And the reason he wore white socks was because they were they were healthier for what they were made of, was healthier for his feet. His feet felt more comfortable. And they gave him trouble because he wore these white socks. It looks like, I don't know what, not yeshivish. And they gave him trouble, and it wasn't necessary at all, because there's no reason. The reason he was wearing it is because of health reasons. So what am I going to do now? I'm going to complain, and I do complain, I admit to everybody. But what does it make me happy? More happy, all the complaining. But let's just remember where their mistake came from. Let's put it that way. Where their mistake came from. Let's remember that also. I'm not asking to be on such a madrega, to be done like kapschus, like the Gemara in Shabbos, that he didn't pay the salary and he was done him like kapschus. I'm not asking such a thing. I'm not under madrega to be able to demand of people such a thing. But I'm just saying, remember, just the nitzis, the nekuda tova. Remember the nekuda tova. Find the nekuda tova. Once you find the nekuda tova, we'll see it'll bring to simcha. And this is what I'm thinking that maybe I should work on the next year. And I hope that everybody who heard this talk will have some toelis from it. And we should all be zeichet together to aksiva v'chasima tova b'sifran shel tzadikim gemurim.
Amen, Amen. Thank you, Rabbi Kaplan.